We've been waiting for Hollow Knight SILKSONG for 7 years, and here it is, finally, having destroyed the Steam servers with its appearance. Yes, the game's release was noisy, because it was a long-awaited event, but is this part as great as the original Hollow Knight? Today, we will figure out what caused such hype around the game, and whether it can really claim the title of Game of the Year, or Hollow Knight SILKSONG turned out to be a complete disappointment. And don't forget to write your opinion in the comments. To understand why Silksong is so hyped, you need to go back to the roots. Back in 2014, 3 Australians, Ari Gibson, William Pellin, and David Kazaki-sen got together and decided to make a game. Small, atmospheric, indie, they were inspired by Metroid, Castlevania, and Japanese platformers. They did not have a budget of millions of dollars. There was no army of developers. Only an idea, enthusiasm, and a couple of sketches of bugs. They launched a campaign on Kickstarter. They raised a little over $50,000. Yes, that's ridiculous money by industry standards, where just one AAA marketing video can cost that much. And then a few years later, they rolled out Hollow Knight. The game was released in 2017 and went almost unnoticed at first, but then it started snowballing. Why? Because Hollow Knight turned out to be a perfect storm of factors. Atmosphere. Hallownest is a world that is both beautiful and dark. It breathes mystery. Each location has its own history, its own dead civilizations, its own sad characters. This is not just a background for a platformer. It is a world you immerse yourself in. Gameplay. The combat system is simple, but perfectly honed. A nail strike is like the movement of a katana in Sekiro. You always feel the weight, the recoil, and then add bosses to this. Each one is a small work of art. And all this cost pennies, just $15 instead of $60. Bottom line, Hollow Knight became a symbol of indie's victory over the giants. 3 people made a game that was placed next to Dark Souls, Metroid, and other legends. But this is where the problem lies. When a small studio suddenly gives birth to a masterpiece, its next project automatically falls into the trap. Can it repeat the success? When Team Cherry announced Silksong, the community's reaction was about the same as if From Software suddenly said, "Guys, Bloodborne 2 is coming out tomorrow." That is first disbelief, then euphoria, and then endless anticipation. But let's figure out why exactly the announcement of Silksong blew up the internet, and how the game gradually turned from just a sequel into a real religion for fans. Initially, Silksong was not planned as a separate game at all. The idea was simple. Add Hornet as an additional character to Hollow Knight. Well, like DLC with content expansion? But then the developers realized that Hornet's mechanics are so different from what was in the original that it's enough to be a full-fledged game. A faster, more acrobatic heroine, a thread system instead of focus, a completely different fighting style. As a result, the DLC grew to the scale of a separate project. And so in 2019, Team Cherry showed the first trailer for Hollow Knight SILKSONG. From that moment on, SILKSONG turned into one of the most anticipated indie projects of our time. But why did the expectations become so high? Hollow Knight left too strong an impression. When a small studio creates a masterpiece, everyone believes that the next game will be at least at the same level. In addition, there are not many games on the market that really break the industry. Stardew Valley, Undertale, Celeste, and now Hollow Knight. Silksong was automatically put on par with a sequel to the great. Team Cherry's silence added fuel to the fire. The irony is that the less the developers talked about the project, the more myths it became. The lack of information turned into fuel for theories. Everything that was shown looked amazing. The new locations were brighter, more diverse. Hornet was immediately liked by fans in the original, and here it comes to the fore. In recent years, not many Metroidvanias have appeared that could compete with Hollow Knight. Sure, there is Ori and the Will of the Wisps, but it has a different aesthetic. There is Axiom Verge, but it is niche. That is, Silksong found itself in a situation where there are almost no competitors. And here we come to the main risk. When a game becomes an object of faith, it ceases to be just a game. Fans are not waiting for Silksong, they are waiting for perfection. And any little thing, any bug, any strange mechanics can lead to disappointment. This is exactly what happened with Cyberpunk 2077. The hype was sky high. People came up with the game of their dreams in their heads, and then it turned out that the game was good, but not as in the fantasies. This is what many developers are afraid of, when expectations kill the game before its release. But now that the game is out, you can ask yourself, Did Silksong live up to expectations? The answer is yes, but not in the way many imagined. I'll be honest, as soon as you launch Silksong, you're immediately struck by the atmosphere. Farloom is not just a new area, it's a whole new world. If Hollow Knight was dark, gloomy, filled with melancholy and a sense of a fallen kingdom, then Silksong greets you with a riot of colors. You walk, and you constantly have the feeling that the world lives on its own. You are just a guest who accidentally ended up here. If in Hollow Knight, our knight was slow, cautious, and required thoughtful combat, then Hornet is the complete opposite. She is fast, acrobatic, sharp. She does not wait, but rushes into the attack. Silksong is a holiday for those who like to suffer. The fights have become faster, more aggressive, and you constantly feel like you are on the edge. One of the main intrigues is whether Silksong will be able to offer something new in terms of history. Yes, and this is the main difference. If Hollow Knight was a story about the fall of civilization, Silksong is a story about choice and responsibility. Hornet is not a silent knight. She talks, communicates, doubts, and this changes the perception of the whole world. You are not just studying the ruins, you are really involved in the events and the conflict and the intrigues of Farloom. Now about the cons. Silksong is an amazing game, but not without problems. Some areas seem too drawn out, especially the catacombs, where the enemies begin to repeat themselves. The difficulty sometimes goes into outright sadism. Not every player is ready to die 30 times on one boss. The plot, although interesting, is sometimes overloaded with symbolism. Some things will be understandable only to fans of the lore, the rest will have to climb to YouTube for explanations. Silksong did not become the new Cyberpunk, it became what it was supposed to be, a new masterpiece. But despite the fact that the game turned out very good, can Silksong really take the game of the year? Most likely yes, but with nuances. Silksong is not a mass game like GTA or Assassin's Creed. It is niche, hardcore, and not everyone can handle it, although this is what makes it special. Silksong will definitely be on the list of candidates for the game of the year, but it is not a fact that it will win. But even if it does not take the main award, it has already won in another. Silksong proved that indie can compete with AAA, and that a small studio from Australia is capable of keeping the entire gaming industry in suspense for almost 10 years. Despite all the advantages, for some, Silksong will still be shit. For those who have too high expectations, who hate complex games, and of course for those who are simply tired of waiting. And that's okay, not every game has to please everyone. But calling Silksong crap is like looking at a Van Gogh painting and saying, well, this is some kind of scribble. You may not understand it, you may not like it, but denying its significance is stupid.